How big of an addition will Eyioma Uwazurike be for the Denver Broncos if he's reinstated? Let's break it all down, and let's start with what happened to Eyioma Uwazurike, the Broncos' 4th-round draft pick back in 2020, Henry. 2022.
Well, he was placing bets, which you're not allowed to do in certain situations. For example, in team facilities, where it's like the bus or the plane or like team hotels on the road. You're also not allowed to be making bets on NFL games regardless of where you are. So there's like the 2 strikes against him. 3rd strike is that he was betting on the Broncos games, which... So he really checked all the boxes with like the 3 things you're not supposed to do, which is why he got suspended. It was a year-long suspension, right?
It was an indefinite suspension, but like at least a year.
Yeah, it's like one of those like you can get on probation after a year. Or what is that? Well, what is the word? Parole after a year, potentially. So there was like the criminal case that went along with it too. He was part of the Iowa State group. You remember they had like a bunch of them were betting up there. I didn't get too deep into all that, but
I think weren't they betting on Iowa State games?
They sure were.
Yeah. And it was like a lot of players from Iowa State.
Yeah. And I think those were pretty good bets because Brock Purdy turned out to be pretty good. But yeah, so he had all that going on. All the legal stuff, they dropped all the charges, so he's good there.
But the legal stuff was getting really dicey for him for a moment. Like this spring, the charges that were put out there that were eventually dropped, but the charges were, if he was convicted, he was going to spend like a minimum, I think, of 2 years in jail. Like this was like, not just your NFL career's over, like this is totally changing your life. But yeah, like Henry said, those were dropped this spring, so those are off the table, thankfully for him.
Yep. And so I believe it's July 24th he's eligible for reinstatement, which would be about a year after all this kind of started. But yeah, so what, 2022, he was the 4th-round draft pick out of Iowa State, obviously.
Just know the fun thing about that 2022 draft pick that the Broncos used to draft Denny?
Yes.
Do you know it?
Do I know? No. Will you tell me?
The Broncos, after they gave all of that up for Russell Wilson, they got Russell Wilson and this 4th-round pick, which they used on Denny. Russell Wilson turns out to be obviously a massive bust for the Broncos, and Denny ends up getting suspended indefinitely for gambling.
Not ideal. So Matt Henningsen out of Wisconsin, the 7th rounder, they were the 2 defensive linemen in that class. Henningsen kind of found a role as a rookie. I believe hardly even saw the field the first half of the year, but he had some moments in the last couple of games of his rookie season where you're like, oh, I see the vision here, because he's 6'6", like 330 pounds, just this big dude with crazy quick feet. And so like he's almost like a pass rusher on the inside just because he's so shifty. But he has that combination that you get really excited about. And some decent production in college too. I don't have the numbers pulled up.
I think he had 10 sacks as a defensive lineman in the middle of the line his senior season.
Yeah. So there's a whole lot to like about him as a football player and as a person too. You know, we talk about the massive mistake he made, or I think repeatedly made. I think it was multiple games.
Yeah.
The mistakes he made. But he was, when he was in the locker room, just an awesome, really friendly guy, super smiley, happy to be there. And I would really like to see him back. I think that there would be a nice little redemption story. At the same time, Todd, I would imagine you show up as a rookie, you don't play all that much, you get your break at the end of the year, you spend a year away from football, coming back in year 3, probably not super easy.
No, it's tough because I think it's hardest to stay active and working, and especially if he was like suspended indefinitely, he never knew when he was coming back. You know what I'm saying? So it's just hard to keep the mindset that it's all going to work out and I'll be back sooner or later. Whether he'll be back on the team, I think that's up for debate. For a couple reasons, mainly because Sean wasn't here when they drafted him, so he didn't see him. He doesn't know his production. He knows the guys that they have here, and they also brung guys in. So like adding him to a roster that we talk about as being kind of loaded, it's kind of tough to do at this point. I hope they give him a shot, give him a chance. But I guess we'll have to see how it goes.
Man, and I feel so bad about... Now, he made the choices that he made, and obviously the NFL is not going to mess around with gambling because that could...
Only they can make money on gambling.
Exactly.
Yes.
Really good point.
Yes.
So he made the choices, but he'd made all of those choices his rookie season in 2022 in that fall. I have to imagine he was done doing the things against NFL rules at the beginning of January of that year. Then the NFL clearly obviously took a lot of time to get the research, and they didn't suspend him until the end of July, right before training camp. For his sake, like that already ruined that year.
Yeah.
But I wish they would have suspended him before OTAs last year, so that he would be back for OTAs of this year.
Yep.
Missing all of OTAs for a young guy anyways, who only played, like Henry said, the second half of his rookie season, and then to have to miss your entire second season, then miss all of OTAs. I just have to imagine that puts you so far behind the 8 ball as from the mental side, from the physical side, from everything. And the first time you're showing up is the beginning of training camp, and the last time you're in the team facility was OTAs of the year before. Does that just put you behind an 8 ball that's impossible to catch up from?
Well, nothing is impossible, but I
that.
think it does make it hard for you to kind of come back and bounce back and kind of flash as quickly. I think if he does come back, he's going to need people that are like patient with him, that allow him to kind of like restart. Like kind of this is like your rookie season all over again. This is you kind of getting, everything back in line, getting your feet wet again, getting back into the flow of being an NFL player. Because you can't really replicate the speed of the game, and then just the time, the mental reps, whether you're there watching or in the game. I think it's invaluable. So, it's going to take some time for him to get back to himself, and he's going to need a coaching staff, a GM that understands he made some mistakes. Let's give him the time, and let's see if he could be the player that we drafted him and expected him to be.
Yep. And the tough part for him is that you're now. If he was trying to compete for a spot in last year's defensive line room, I would have liked his chances. I think that you could have seen the path. The way I see it now, there are 4 locks to make the team in Zach Allen, John Franklin Myers, Angelo Blackson, Malcolm Roach. You might be able to throw a 5th in there with DJ Jones, but you save $10 million to if you move on from him. And again, kind of similar player in some ways to Innie. Like you really want him as close to a nose tackle as possible, I guess. But DJ's probably making the team, so there's 5. Then you've got Matt Henningsen, who is just slowly grown and grown and grown. Had some great flashes, kind of for the first time late last year, where you say like, oh, there's like a little pop here too. It's not just him fulfilling his duties. It's he can get in the backfield and maybe make something happen. Now he is going into year 3 with a little bit of momentum, and there's 6 guys. And they might only keep 6 guys on that defensive line. From there, I mean, it's a very open competition with Elijah Garcia, Jordan Miller, Jordan Jackson. So I think that most likely, if Innie makes the 53-man roster, it's because they keep 7 defensive linemen. The next most likely is because they cut DJ Jones and save $10 million, which would be a bold decision after all the work you did. But if Innie really proves that he's capable of being a part of rotation after a year off, then that opens that door. And then the third most likely scenario is Matt Henningsen's gone. But again, those 2 were drafted in that same draft class. And Henningsen, while maybe doesn't have the physical tools that Innie does, I looked it up. He's 6'6", 320. And he had 9 sacks his senior season. Those are ridiculous numbers. But Matt Henningsen's turned into an NFL player. So you're kind of... It'd be tough to justify keeping Innie. And so that's why he's really facing an uphill battle. But I would imagine the Broncos would love to have him on the practice squad because he does have all those traits. And you would think that they'd be able to get him through. Although, again, defensive linemen with those sorts of traits don't come around very often. And most teams feel like they would really like to upgrade their depth on the defensive line.
That's why I'm thinking, can we do some... shady roster business to, maybe IR him all season and let him use this as a year to mentally get back, physically get back, and then next year he's on the 53. And if he's not on the 53, fine, he can go to someone else's practice squad because that means he's not good enough for this team. But I just am a little hesitant that he's going to slide through to the practice squad because I could see a team saying, man, we have 4 good defensive linemen, but a 5th or 6th that we can use on a really talented guy, and the reason he's here is because he was suspended last year, we'll bring him in, and maybe it doesn't work for them, but ideally, I think practice squad's a perfect place for him. I just don't know if that's going to happen, so maybe something's a little tweaked in training camp, and he's on IR for the whole season.
Yeah, I hope that he's able to make the roster, because Like you said, he's fighting an uphill battle. I think practice squad would be the best fit for him. But I don't know if anybody with his history right now is claiming him off of practice squad like the first couple weeks. I think it would take some time for him to get claimed. And I think, you never know where this could all turn out. I think he's definitely fighting an uphill battle. But I love looking at other people's stories who missed a year. Like, you look at Darren Waller. He missed for different reasons and had his own issues. But, 2015 and 16, he was there. He averaged 5 catches and 50 yards in the season. He missed all of 2017.
Wow.
18, he comes back and has 6 receptions. The next 2 years after his first year back, he averages 99 catches and over 1,100 yards. So
wow.
You never know what can happen to a person that gets his second chance and is able to bounce back. So, the sky's the limit. It's just all about him finding a place that's going to be patient with him and let him redevelop himself. And hopefully it's here in Denver.
And I'll say the one time that Sean talked about right after he was suspended, instead of being mad at which he might have been behind the scenes disappointed, but remember, Sean wasn't here when was placing those bets. He just came into this situation where had already done that and then was suspended. Sean outwardly was pissed at the NFL for just rules that he thinks aren't fair. As you said, Todd, the NFL can make money, but these guys can't, and he felt like the rules were he wasn't mad that NFL players can't make money off betting. I should make that clear. But just that there's so many rules that are inconsistent or that didn't make sense. And he didn't feel like the NFL was very clear about what players can and can't do. So I think Sean was kind of on his side in this situation. So I do think Sean is open to giving him a second chance.
Where's his translator? That's the question.
Exactly.
Translator. I think every
Do
NFL
fourth-round picks
player,
not have translators?
every NFL player needs a translator.
There you go.
And I think it all
I think what
out.
Sean said was it's like a 20-page document, and you come out knowing less about what the rules are than you did when you started.
Right. Yeah.
And then right after that, he had or maybe it was right before, he said he had like a 30-minute meeting with the entire team saying, these are the rules. We're going to clarify them for you. Don't do this stuff. Now, also, you bet on multiple games this team was playing on. So, on the Broncos, which is why there's a chance he comes back. If he was betting against, then all of a sudden
you wouldn't be able to go back to the
probably
locker room, would you?
No.
You gotta know you were betting against your own team.
I think it's happened before.
That's fair.
And he was betting for them to win. I feel like you shouldn't be able to bet against, but
I agree.
not for?
What gets you?
I totally agree.
What gets you is
More
those player
motivation, I
props.
guess?
Yeah.
The player props is tough. It's like Phil Lindsay is going to have over 50 rushing yards in this one. At least it's over, but you could kind of have some inside knowledge there about what the game plan is.
100% could.
I don't know. There's a fine line.
Yeah.
But yeah, hopefully he's back. And again, I want to be really fired up if he winds up coming back and playing.
Man, and he has that unique trait of being a big boy in the middle of the defensive line that can effectively rush the passer.
Yep.
9 sacks from a D tackle is
Crazy.
nuts.
In the Big 12, not Big 10.
Right. And it is
Still
college,
good.
so it's easier, obviously, to do that in college than the NFL. But still, that is such a unique trait that could be huge. And the Broncos' defensive line is already stacked. You add that, if that's able to successfully transfer over, that would just be a massive addition. But like you guys have said, uphill battle. Great conversation. Really enjoyed it. If you have a question to be left on the mailbag for us to break down on Mondays, leave us over at thednvr.com on any of our podcasts or specifically this post, and we'll read it next week. Thanks for tuning in.